Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you once again to the airwaves of Salam Media. We welcome our listeners on the various platforms of Salam Media. Another Wednesday night edition of Wednesday Nights with myself, Inayet Wadee, and also looking at our viewers on our YouTube, our Facebook channel, and also the viewers of ITV who have joined us this evening. So it's wonderful having you with us. We trust and hope that you are safe. And safety we are talking about this evening, and we're talking about the scourge of kidnapping in South Africa. Now, we know to a large extent it has been an unreported crime, except for the fact that we've seen some very high-profile cases emerging recently as far as kidnapping is concerned. And the scary part is there is a huge increase. Statistically, there is a massive increase in kidnapping, and it is definitely on an upward trajectory. And the key issue here, and what we are going to be focusing tonight, is to understand some of these issues, but also at the same time looking at ourselves, introspecting in South Africa in terms of how we are dealing with the scourge of kidnapping, and also looking at the ability, the capability of crime intelligence and the security apparatus in the country. Now, I've got two experts on the subject this evening. We've got Martin Iwi, who is a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies, and we also have got Mike Bolhuis, a specialist private investigator. Both on my screen right now. Martin Iwi, good evening to you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good evening
yes, and also
to you.
To Mike, we appreciate you taking time out talking to us this evening. So for the next hour, we're definitely going to be focusing on the issue of kidnapping. Now, Martin, just to begin with, and I've seen the ISS, the Institute for Security Studies, doing some research. There have been a lot of numbers with regard to the kidnapping. And at this point in time, we see this increasing numbers, this upward trajectory as far as the stats go, and clearly this is a cause for concern, Martin.
It's Martin,
if you could unmute. Okay, perfect.
Okay, yes, indeed, this is very, very serious, because what we are seeing is statistics that will beat every level that we have seen. We know that 2013, 2014 is often believed to be the year of kidnapping, because we had over 4,000 kidnappings. But if we look at the current statistics, 2,000 in just 3 months, that's 90 days. And if you do the math, you come up with 7,500 kidnappings per year if this year continues on this trend. So this is extremely serious and something that we need definitely to take action.
Yes, and talking of 7,500 per annum, we break it down per day. Obviously, the number definitely gets a lot more scary. Now, Mike, I know you've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of private investigating, and to understand the nature of the beast, the nature of the crime that we are dealing with. You know, how serious is this crime? Mike, if you could unmute.
Say again?
Okay, you can continue.
Kidnapping is, in my opinion, one of the most serious crimes in the world, because kidnapping, if we're talking about a high-profile kidnapping, they take a loved one, and the parties that are left behind will literally pay anything and everything in order to get the loved one back. So it is not only a crime that's committed against one person, it's committed against the whole family and friends. It's committed against the community. It's committed against the nation, because if you look at the latest kidnapping of the children and the children kidnappings, it upsets absolutely everybody. The man in his workplace, it's in his mind the whole time. The lady that works at a school, it's in her mind. It just affects absolutely everyone, and sometimes even internationally. So it is a heinous crime, and it is unfortunately a very lucrative crime, because these kidnappers in the high-profile level do get away with this crime. They can commit this crime and can get away with it. So yes, it's a serious concern, and I don't know if I have a lot of advice, and we probably will get to it, and my friend there as well. But at the end of the day, unless serious, drastic steps and punishment levels comes into place, I unfortunately have to say that we will have to practice absolute positive paranoia in order to avoid as much kidnapping as possible in our country.
Yes. Now, Martin, when we look at what has been happening in South Africa recently, and for a very long time, we've seen what has happened just across the border in Mozambique, where we've seen so much as far as kidnapping taking place, and also looking at the problem globally. You know, we know of Brazilian syndicates, we know about what's taking place in Nigeria, in Colombia, in Latin American countries, and it's stuff that we actually were seeing in movies. But now it is reality. Reality is hitting home, and we're seeing exactly what has been playing out in all these countries now in South Africa. The key issue here is, have we come to terms with what a serious situation this is at this point in time?
Inayet, don't forget that among those countries that you've named, don't leave out countries like Belgium, countries like Canada, countries like America. In South Africa, we are saying that a child is kidnapped every 5 minutes. In America, they are saying that a child is kidnapped every 30 seconds. So this is a global problem. This is a very serious problem that we often don't take it seriously as it is, because those who go through a kidnapping incident, these people suffer trauma that will surely last throughout the rest of their life. And therefore, why should an individual go through this? And that's not, as Mike has said, it is not just the individual, the victim. It is the whole family. It is the whole society that bears the brunt, that bears the cost of kidnapping, which I think, look, we definitely need to do something in South Africa, and South Africa should be acting with the rest of the world. You mentioned Mozambique. I don't want to really compare what is happening in South Africa to Mozambique, because the situation in Mozambique is really related to violent extremism, to these very stubborn criminals, the so-called terrorists. And now when terrorists kidnap, they kidnap for different reasons. They don't kidnap for the kind of reasons that we see in South Africa, that we see in Belgium, we see in America. It's a different form of kidnapping. It's a lot more violent, a lot more horrifying than the kidnapping that we see here in South Africa. So I'm not saying that kind of kidnapping cannot happen here. It used to happen during the days of Pagat and during the days when we had terrorist groups. So it's something that could come back. And therefore, it's a little different, because if you look at the reasons of kidnapping in South Africa, they are mostly for family reasons, the reasons for ransom, the reasons for sexual violence, or reason for gender-based violence, and so on and so forth. So these are common law crimes. But if you look at the crime, the terrorist crime, that's a lot more serious matter.
Yes. Now, what has obviously come to our attention, Mike, is, as you mentioned, the 4 months. We've heard about the young girl in Johannesburg. There have been many high-profile businessmen that have been kidnapped over a period of time. And just to talk about the clear motives as far as these kidnappers are concerned, and I know Martin alluded to the various reasons why people get kidnapped, but just to talk about the clear motive and to understand these clear motives as to why these kidnappers are committing this crime.
Thanks, Martin, for explaining it very well. I'd just like to add with Martin the following. The most common kidnapping in South Africa, it falls under kidnapping or abduction, is when a father does not return the child or a mother does not return the child, where there has been a divorce and there are certain rules and regulations that needs to be followed pertaining to the kids. That is the most common kidnapping that there is, and the parents would then go, the different parents, and they would open up a case at the local police station, saying that the father or the mother or the ex-husband or the ex-wife has kidnapped the child. The second most happening in kidnappings is when drug addicts do not pay their fees or their monies. This is a common happening in South Africa, where we have a very big drug problem, and a druggie will be kept, and the parents would be phoned and said that if they don't pay, they won't get their child back, and they will hurt the child or make him scream and move the parents in order to pay the monies. These are all small amounts, and it happens quite a lot. You also get the kidnappings that we've recently read some of them in the news, where somebody would go to the mall. They have spotters which identify the person that has a lot of jewelry or look as if he is rich, and then they would grab him or her and drive around with that person, kidnapping that person, and then going to all the ATMs and emptying all the credit cards, as well as stealing the jewelry and sometimes even the car. And those kidnappings is the third most happening. They will keep you for a couple of days, and the person is returned. Then we jumped, and we can go up to the high-level kidnappings that we have recently seen, where it is extremely well planned, at sometimes 6 months or years even up front, where they have all the information of the family. They identify a very rich businessman, or in this instance, which has horrified us all, the 4 children, and they would know everything of the family, where they go, when they go, who works for them, who is the security in the area. They might have a hand in the security, or even in the police station, or even on municipal or government level, because this is a multi 200, 400, 500 million rand or dollars kidnapping syndicates that operate with criminals overseas. They plan this very well. They're very patient, extremely professional, and the one does not necessarily know of the other. Each one gets paid his commission. So, for instance, the spotter would not know who is his handler. The handler would not know who is the crime boss, and so up the ladder. They don't give that information out. So at the end, the head of the syndicates would be one man maybe, or 2 men in South Africa, and then a group overseas, and that's where they will receive the monies, and they plan everything to the T. And people would immediately ask me, and sorry that I'm carrying on this, how is it possible that we never hear of what is being paid and how much was paid? And there I can just tell the people listening to us, they can answer that for themselves. Which family would you get after going through such an experience, go on national TV and said, hey guys, you know what? I got my kids back. We paid 500 million for them, and we're okay, and we're going forward. Once the people are returned, the children are returned, the family goes literally in hiding, away from the media, away from social media, away from the press, and they try, and as Martin has very clearly said, try to make sense of their traumatized lives. These incidences, these crimes has, like rape and child molestation and human and child trafficking, has an effect on that person for the rest of their lives.
Yes. Now, Martin, at this point in time, let's just talk about the capability of crime intelligence, because this is extremely important to understand. All we're seeing at this point in time is we're seeing statistics being put out. You know, we hear that police statistics show a 133% increase in the number of kidnappings from one year to the next. But from what Mike has just described, because we're talking of criminal syndicates, we're talking of gangs, we're talking of people that are, you know, that we don't even know, that we don't even get to see. And we're seeing the movement of money. We're talking about large sums of money. When Mike talks about a $500 million industry, this is huge. This is massive that we're talking about. And let's just try and understand, you know, the capacity or the capability of crime intelligence to get to grips and deal with this problem.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's a huge industry, and it's a very complex industry. It is difficult for any law enforcement agency, even if you were to put together all the police or even all the security agencies in South Africa to work towards stopping kidnapping, it's going to be still difficult because in countries like America, in Belgium, in Canada, they've tried, they've invested so much trying to stop this. It has not been able to stop. And what's even complicated in some cases is the existence of insurance companies that are willing to pay a ransom that Mike is talking about. And the moment you pay ransom, and what has made countries like South Africa more vulnerable is the ability to pay ransom. When you can pay ransom, you become already a target. The countries that do not have the means to pay ransom, they don't even have the insurance. Those countries, it is difficult to find the kind of kidnapping that we are seeing. But in terms of the capacity of our intelligence, look, I think it is too much. I think that we'll need a lot more head. We'll need a lot more capacity training. We'll need a lot more expertise within the intelligence community to be able to even make an inch towards stopping this crime. But what the intelligence could do, and let me maybe put it first like this, that if you look at the crime today, what makes the crime so difficult for law enforcement agencies is that it is not like the crime that you refer to in Mozambique, where we know that these are terrorist groups. You know where these terrorists operate. You know who they are. You know their even psychological state of mind. When it comes to South Africa, you know, a country which largely one could say it's in peace, it becomes very difficult to be able to pinpoint somebody in the street to say this person is a kidnapper, this person is not. And that's what makes it very difficult for intelligence to be able to dictate. Because most often, as Mike has explained, it's not organized in a massive way that you can tell that yes, a syndicate that is responsible for kidnapping children or kidnapping rich business people. Most often, these individuals come together at ad hoc, one person sitting somewhere who is doing the master planning and then providing the resources also. It makes it extremely difficult for the intelligence. So what I would say, therefore, is that the intelligence need to do more. We need to do more analysis. This data should provide, a specimen for analysis for us to be able to get to the root of this business, to understand why kidnappings take place, who are those carrying them out. When it comes to family kidnappings, the one that Mike mentioned about marriage go wrong, or people angry at each other, or someone didn't pay his fees for drugs and so on and so forth, and then kidnapping takes place. That's a very difficult one to prevent because this comes at ad hoc. It is not something that has been planned. But those that are planned, those that take so long for people to plan, like the multi-kidnappings, I think that this is something that intelligence should work harder to be able to prevent.
Yes, and also, Mike, the one area that we haven't spoken about is human trafficking, because that is another area of concern.
Yeah, human trafficking is in the same level. It's actually even worse because once a child or a woman, it's usually women that are taken for the either selling the kids or selling the woman into the sex slave industry. Those people are never ever returned. It's like death to the family. And it's actually even worse than when somebody dies and you have a body and you can bury the body. Here, a woman is taken or a child is taken and just never ever returned. It's probably worse than kidnapping. And some of these syndicates would coincide. However, there's no proof of it. It is something that I just think I have no proof of it. But both these syndicates are, as I previously said, make a proper investigations. They do a proper, as we as specialist investigators would do, they do a proper evaluation of what they're going to do, a proper risk analysis and a proper identification. And when I say identification, I mean they know how much the person has in his bank. They know everything that that person or family is doing on social media. I've mentioned a few things before. I just wanted to add this so that the public understand how severe this is, that and how difficult it is. And Martin is correct. It is so difficult to prevent this crime. I don't think this is preventable, because remember, these kidnappers, after doing their thorough investigation and whilst doing this, they buy and they appoint. And crime can only really flourish when there's an authority involved. And they will target a policeman, a corrupt security guard or two, and even insiders in the family. But they will know everything that's going on social media, how many cars you have, what you have in your bank, what will you pay, and what you can pay. So this is not a hasty thing, like Martin has said. These are extremely well planned, and the same with human trafficking. There will be an order. It's the same with vehicle theft nowadays. We've sent out a project today about most of the vehicles, expensive vehicles that are sold. We find them in Mozambique. As a matter of fact, the syndicates there are so blatant that they sit in the vehicles and send the photos back to the South Africans and say, hey, I've got your vehicle. Do you want it back? This is what we want. So we have kidnapping in a different level coming in now, the vehicles, animals. We have had cases where people's animals were taken. Some people will pay more for the animals than for humans. So kidnapping has escalated in all the levels in South Africa. But here's the thing that the public must understand. The high-level kidnappings is not like the low-level kidnappings that is opportunistic. You can quickly do it here and there. This is not paid, and as Martin and I have explained it before. The higher-level kidnappings is properly planned. There is patience. They take their time because they know that within a year they're going to make that 500 million rand. And therefore, I want to warn the public. You must have a positive paranoia. You must not go and constantly post everything of yourself and your worth on social media, because that's the first thing that these syndicates look at, is your wealth.
Well, certainly, and we will obviously get a lot more advice from you, Mike. But Martin, we know that there are huge sums of money being exchanged, and unlike in the case of a bank transfer where there is a paper trail, now looking at the trail of the money and how it basically exchanges hands as well. And we know that this money is not only paid locally, this money is being paid overseas. And I think this is where I'm trying to wrap my mind around and trying to understand that, with these huge sums of money and how these monies are moving around, do we have any idea? Do we have any clue as to how this actually works?
Yes, indeed. I mean, the criminals are getting very smarter, and the internet offers opportunities to actually blur that tracing mechanism that you're talking about. Today, most kidnappers will actually ask for bitcoins for payment of ransom. And when you pay in Bitcoin, you've basically blocked every trace for the police to be able to trace that money. So then it put a question mark on what we have been saying, that if you want to really stop crimes like this one, follow the money. How do you follow the money in this case? How do you follow Bitcoins? And these things, they change all the time. And when someone says, put in that account, put in this account, where you cannot trace that account afterward, it makes it extremely difficult. And the criminals have gotten very smart when it comes to payment of ransom, or when it comes to any money, any criminal money that is transacting. They make sure that the traces are blocked. And through the internet, especially the dark web, it makes it extremely difficult for police to do investigation. You need special capacity to be able to do this. And most police officers in South Africa do not have this capacity, because sometimes this capacity can only be controlled in America, where you have a lot of the IP addresses, or you have the internet sitting. So it means that for South Africa to be able to combat this crime effectively, especially when it comes to following the money, following the traces, they will need to deal with other countries like the US.
Yes, Mark, I recall Yusuf Abramji putting out a tweet, and just following up from what Martin is saying in terms of police and intelligence. And Yusuf Abramji went to the extent of even calling the president of the country and also talking about not only local crime intelligence, but talking about global, talking about the likes of the FBI, talking about the likes of the Interpol, and all these security agencies basically working together. Because from what Martin is saying, it's scary with all the money that is being moved, but that money is moving somewhere. It is sitting somewhere. It is sitting in a country that would possibly even encourage money laundering. So, putting all of this together tells us that, it's not something that we in South Africa are going to solve. We're not going to sort out the problem overnight, because it does require a lot more effort, and it requires a lot more people, including the global intelligence community.
Yes. I'm a very good friend, and I'm sure we are good friends with Yusuf. Yusuf have done so much, Yusuf Abramji, in order to curb crime and to expose crime. And we have one common goal, absolutely, and that's to eradicate crime out of South Africa. It hurts us both, and we all go out of our way. And I'm sure a lot of listeners and a lot of people, as during the years, come to a point where they really want to get involved and see an end to this, because this is the total demise of South Africa. But from what Martin has said and you have said pertaining cybercrime and Bitcoin and that stuff, that's why I've always been an advocate totally against any form of cryptocurrencies. The criminal element that does these kidnappings has their IT specialists, and they have their own, if you can call it, their own cybercrime unit. They know exactly what to do, and they know exactly how to get the money and in which way. And also, I must mention, there's a lot of countries out there where you can buy a banker. You can buy an official in a bank. If the money is good and a lot, you can, and I'm not saying specifically, but it could be in a bank in Hong Kong or in Dubai or anywhere in Europe. If you give an envelope, like in the old days, and you hear no evil, you see no evil, you'll accept the money and you can change it and place it wherever you want, and it can absolutely never be found. I don't care if you MacGyver, you won't find it. And that's what these high-level kidnappings or syndicates in the world do. They make sure that they know of everything that we are discussing here. As a matter of fact, there are informers to the syndicates that follows me of anything and everything I would say, or Martin, or you, or Yusuf, or for that matter, the police, or Interpol, or the CIA, or the FBI, or Mossad. The syndicates of the world, in the world today, is not one that makes a hasty decision or not an informed decision. He makes an informed decision on the intelligence that he can gather. And how does he gather that? He has to study, and he does study those who are against them, those who are track and tracing them, those who wants to eradicate them. That's the best way. And then they just a step ahead. So following the money, it's a very difficult question to answer, because so far it has not been possible. And yes, it's not kept in South Africa. I'm talking about high-level kidnappings. Most of it, if not all of it, would be taken overseas. That makes it even more difficult for investigators in South Africa. If they were to catch the part of the syndicate here, they will not be able to catch the next one, or the next one, or the head of the snake, because they're not here. Because the bottom section of the kidnapping syndicates have been paid, and they go their separate ways. They don't know of each other, and they might be contacted again. Let me just explain what I mean there. The group that has taken the Motti kids does not know the head of the snake. That's the best way to explain it. They get paid to do this, and they are South African. There might be one or two foreigners involved overseeing it, but that's it. But they will never know the handlers or the next level or the higher level. The monies is in a total different level, and it's only being dealt with by an extremely connected syndicate group that has connections in banks and in authorities, in the politics, and in safety and security services and international connections. That could be anything from travel to money laundering to other forms of whatever they need to do, even to commit violence or send out a hit or get somebody killed. That's how connected they are.
Yes, Mike. And Martin, I seen you were smiling and nodding your head as Mike was talking about see no evil, hear no evil, buy a banker, buy a cyber expert. Have you got a comment?
Yes, indeed, because corruption is at the root of all of what we are saying. And it is also the biggest impediment to the police, what I call the enemy within. And it is that enemy within that is really the biggest mountain to climb. It is not most of what we are talking about. If the police can successfully eliminate corruption within the police, I think the police will be able to even defeat crime, whatever crime we are talking about. But the biggest challenge is within the police itself to be able to eliminate that corruption. And for me, that's where the focus should actually be. Because if you look at police officers being incriminated in most of these crimes, you know, we talked about this stolen drugs. 14 tons of drugs. How can that disappear in the custody of the police? So again, it is that corruption that is really the biggest impediment, the biggest hurdle to police effort to combat crime, because most of these police officers are involved in these crimes. And as Mike has said, because of the way we approach money, criminals know very well that money is extremely important. It is the liquid. It is a currency for you to get whatever you want. So whatever they do, there is a sum set aside for bribery. So no syndicate will organize a business without setting aside money for bribery. And this chunk of money is always huge. If you're a police person, you've never really, how much is your salary? And somebody comes up to you and say, I'll give you $100,000. And you multiply that by 15 in rand. You will say, what do you want me to do? I will do it for you. Because you know it's one time and you get rich. So this is the problem.
Yeah.
Yes, Mike, and I also observed a shake of the head when Martin was talking about police corruption. And, you know, it is clear that, you know, through your experience over the years, you've seen a fair amount of that. And I just want to focus a bit on the question of our security services, police corruption, and even, sorry about that, in many instances, being complicit in this type of crime.
Yes, my hearts go out to the 20% of the police that's not corrupt. That's my concern. The police, you get the police, like we know when there's a child kidnapping, you'll get policemen there that will burst out in tears, and they would want to do it, and they would want to give their all, but they cannot. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have a proper cybercrime track and tracing or a grabber unit, nothing. They have nothing. They don't have sophisticated equipment in order to track and trace cell phones. Ever since the Kenya incident, there is no track and tracing in South Africa whatsoever. The biggest criminal can jump a plane. We can identify whichever criminal here. Because of the abuse of the good that we could have done during the years, and that we did do as specialist investigators and the police, using the best of the best technology that was available, was totally abused by criminals, corrupt policemen, and the private security industry in order to commit crime and to enrich themselves. And therefore, these cell phone networks, all of them, the government, the safety and security services, all agreed that there is going to be no more proper track and tracing available due to the fact that there was loss of life, and it can happen again. This is just a quick explanation. There's much more to it. But the bottom line is the 20% of the police that really wants to make the difference actually needs the 80% to assist. And they need a complete infrastructure to make that difference. And therefore they can't, and that frustration is immense, because automatically the not corrupt policemen are being pulled with the river of the 80% that is corrupt, because they get intimidated. If you don't play ball with your station, all of them together, and that is how the cultures work in South Africa. If you're not for us, you're against us, your life could be in danger, or you could be ousted, or you can be, your workplace could be worse as hell. We have thousands of these incidences during the years where policemen just cannot handle it anymore. The top cops, they leave, and they either join us or other safety and security firms to try and make it elsewhere, because they just cannot handle the corruption, the attitudes, and all the lack of infrastructure that the police in South Africa is showing, and it doesn't have an infrastructure. And that is, I think, Martin's biggest concern as well, because as long as there's so much corruption in our country, I don't even want to go on the government level. Crime begets crime. That's it. If a policeman commits crime and he can get away with, another one will. Crime always, if it's not immediately dealt with, it will always escalate. Others will join because of money. He said it so well. It's the liquid that nobody will say no to. So, yes, but my heart goes out to those who wants to make the difference, but they do not have the assistance or the infrastructure in order to make that difference, to deal with all, not only the kidnappings. I'm talking about ATM bombings, mall attacks. I'm talking about the drugs. That's why it's everything that's confiscated by the police just never gets to court. Everything that the police takes, nowadays it seems like it's just resold. It just goes back in another way to the public and it gets sold. And we hear the tip of the iceberg of this. And that's why so many of these judicial problems stick their head out of court cases that are falling, because the evidence has just totally disappeared. But you are very right. The corruption in the police is probably the 99% reason for crime that's being committed in South Africa, because you don't protect and you don't serve. And if you don't fear the police and you don't respect the police, crime will beget crime, and the public, the criminal mind, will do as he pleases.
Yes, Martin, now this obviously begs the question and putting the police services under the radar, under the spotlight, and asking the question, what are we spending our police budget on? And also at the same time, do we have the resources? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the skills? And without, and as Mike mentioned, these criminals are sophisticated. They're highly sophisticated. Do we have the same level of sophistication within our security apparatus?
Yeah, no, definitely no. We don't have the same level of sophistication. We don't even have enough human resources to be able to deal with all the major challenges that we have. So, look, the challenge, the issue of police corruption has been around for a very long time, and we've been looking into it not only in South Africa but in other countries. I will just give you an example. When we looked at it in Nigeria, where the problem was really endemic in society, what we realized and what the police themselves told us why they will take a bribe is simply because if you look at their salary, it cannot even pay their rent. So police salary are not commensurate with the standard of living. And if we keep it like that, then we are telling the police, top up your salary with something else. And we know that's something else. So it will end up being corruption. So therefore, we really need to look at the police, the police institution, to look at who are the police, what is the standard of living, what is it that can give a police officer a decent standard of living, commensurate with the work that they do. And if we don't do that, because the moment they are tempted to take money, they will. I've lived in Europe. I've seen how it is done there. The police officers, not that they don't have corrupt police officers, but the percentage is not as big as what Mike is saying, where 80% is corrupt and only 20% is not corrupt. That's the problem. So what we should do is to reverse it, to have 80% not corrupt and only 20% corrupt, meaning that you can come across many police officers and none of them will be corrupt. But if we don't make sure that the police officers have a decent standard of living, which is commensurate, they can pay their rent, pay the school fees of their children in a way that does not stress them, then we'll be able to reduce corruption. And I think it's the same case here in South Africa.
Mike, what about private security services, people like yourselves, in providing the level of support or a certain level of support to the South African police services? Because I'm sure that, within private security companies, there is a fair amount of experience, there is fair level of expertise in providing some direction, when these crimes obviously take place, but also at the same time providing meaningful input so that the police can sit up and take notice.
I just want to add to what Martin has said. A policeman, here's the criteria of a policeman. Number one, he wants to be a policeman. He must be passionate. That is his main goal. He has all the jobs. Out of all the jobs, listen carefully, he wants to do one thing. He wants to protect and serve.
Yes.
Secondly, training. You cannot have a policeman that's 200 kilograms and cannot walk 10 meters or catch a criminal. He has to be fit. He has to be physically able. He has to be literate. He has to be trained. He needs to know the law. And he needs to be a cut above. Number three, he must be seen as the go-to guy. He must be feared but respected. He must be seen as, if anything is gone, he must be visible. If anything is wrong, this is the guy that I will go to. My police station is there. They are there to protect and serve. They are the go-to guys. He must be friendly. He must accommodate you. I can say something here and you will hear, if we could have heard everybody listening, you will hear a crowd roaring. How are they treated when they enter a police station? Or how long have they waited when they call the police to come and assist? So the police of today, the biggest corruption is not necessarily selling a docket. The biggest corruption in the police is because there are people in the police that are not policemen. They are mechanics or painters. They are something else. They are not policemen. They are only there because it was a last resort. They said to themselves, I'm going to be a policeman because I at least get medical and I got some, and unfortunately then he will take the suit, he will take the badge, and he will chocho or steal or take a bribe or harass or intimidate or get involved in extortion and corruption like you can't believe, because of not being trained, because of not being the person that he is supposed to be in the police, that he wants to protect and serve and be the go-to guy. Pertaining the private security industry, it's extremely difficult. People have the idea that we are the heroes or the wonder boys or that can make the difference. Although we are known as the end of the line, we can only do actually what the police would allow or assist you with or work with you on. We cannot do murder cases without investigating officers involved, without prosecutors involved. We cannot do major high-profile cases of kidnapping unless there's authority involvement. This is not America where sheriffs can go out and arrest any criminal and work with the police hand in hand. It's a brilliant system in America. In South Africa, actually, recently and all the more, the teeth and the grab of the security firms are taken away. The security firms, the private security investigators, the private PIs, and there's very few specialist investigators like ourselves. We only are as strong as the authorities allow us and are involved with us, and where we can work together as a team. Unless that stays like that and that is happening, we will have absolutely no success. So the private security is immensely controlled and immensely, how shall I say, kept away from any form of involvement with the policing industry, because there's this animosity and there's no real proper communications, and there's no common goal as to eradicate crime and see crime as the common goal that we need to fight against. There's a second thing of extreme police corruption, and that's the division amongst policemen. We have it all the time. This police station hates that police station, wouldn't work with this one. The Hawks doesn't like those, and these doesn't want to work with these, and they don't want to work with private security firms as well. So there's a serious division in South Africa, because the common goal as crime, the penny hasn't dropped, that we should all stand together and work together, whether you're a screw in an engine or whether you're the engine block or whatever part of the engine you are all equally important, whether it's small or big, in order to deal with crime.
Yes, I see time obviously has moved quite fast. Martin, while all this paranoia and people are definitely in a state of worry, we see it right across the board. It's become a major talking point in the last few weeks, especially since the Moti children had gone missing, and everyone seems to be talking about it. And as I think Mike mentioned, spoke about positive paranoia, but it's so easy for people to retreat into that negative mindset. And just to understand, for people to understand, people like yourself, myself, as parents, as grandparents of children, not to get into that state of paranoia, but more importantly, to be vigilant, and also even more important, to look at the risk factors and to mitigate those risk factors.
Yeah, no, indeed. Let me just add a critical point to Mike's brilliant point. I think it is time to review the police curriculum and how long it takes to train a police in this country. And I think that's one of the causes, because if you go in 3 months, 6 months, you are out as a police officer, that's not enough. In most countries, a minimum of 2 years for you to come out as a police officer, a minimum of 2 years. And during those 2 years, we've seen how those who are not police officers drop out. So that 2 years provides a selection. So the selection of the fittest, and that's what we want. We want that when we send people out there to protect and defend the country, these are people that can actually do the job. These are people that they have the required training. When you go through a police training for 3 months, 6 months, and you come out, and then when we talk on TV, on radio, that we need training, then they will send someone for a 5-day training, for 2 weeks training, and then we're saying that the people got training. That's not training. That's not training. That's awareness workshops that they attend. So I think we need to review the curriculum for the police, see how long it takes to train the police. Are we giving them the right training? Do they really go through that police curriculum that we need? And I think if we can make that decision, we'll be able to answer many of the questions that Mike raised. Look, I think that the public also bears, a responsibility. If we want to be able to protect crime, we cannot dump this all on the police. What I've seen work in so many countries is when you have a responsible population, when you have communities that actually take charge of their own security, when you have communities that report anything that is strange in their community and they are able to call the police, when that's alone can protect South Africa, or can protect South Africans way more than the police. But when communities believe that there is a policeman who has to deal with 56 million people. It's very, very difficult. It's difficult in every country where, crime is so high, and we have, a low ratio of police to population. So that's what we need to review. We need to review the training. We need to review the community policing. When we talk of community policing, it's not just about the police going to talk to a traditional leader and say, we come here, we want to look. No, that's not enough. It's about community participation in policing. Communities bearing that responsibility, and the police and community respecting the police, because what we find today is that police are not respected. They might be feared to some extent, but criminals, of course, have no fear, have no respect. And that's what makes it even worse. So we need to build police as it used to be, where communities respect, they know that the police job is a noble job, it's a job that is for all of South Africans. And therefore, we all bear that responsibility for the security of everyone. My neighbor's security is my responsibility, and vice versa. If we build that system, that approach, look, South Africa will be way safer. But if we keep on being in silo the way we are, where you don't even know your neighbor, you don't even communicate with your neighbor, anything can happen. They break into your house, your neighbor is watching. Your neighbor cannot do anything because there is not that community relations. There is not that community to police relations. And that's what we need in South Africa.
Yes, extremely important. Now, Mike, talking about advice, and I know in the past you and I have spoken, and you normally give us some wonderful advice as communities, as families, in terms of what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and more importantly, again, the question that I had asked Martin in terms of trying to reduce the risk factors that we could possibly be exposed to.
Number one, be careful of this thing. Look carefully. The cell phone. Let me tell you, that's the next DNA. If I have your cell phone, I have everything. Unless you have listened to my previous speeches where I've warned. Most people have more information, most 99%, more information on their cell phone than anything else. Once I have a cell phone, I know what he believes in. I know what he stands for. I know everything about his bank, where he stays, his family, his car registration, snapshots of himself, his girlfriend or his wife, his family, his holiday home, how much he owes, and how much he owns. People keep everything on their cell phones. So my advice is, number one, take a step back, clean your phones, clean your social media, and only do real communications with real information, and be very careful to expose yourself in any way. No naked photos, videos, no what you're worth, nothing, anything that puts you in a position where if a criminal steals your cell phone, that syndicate or criminal element has all your information. Out of all evidence in a floor, when I do an investigation, whether it's fingerprints, blood, documents, forensic information, and a cell phone, I'll take the cell phone. So that's our advice number one. Be very careful of cybercrime, which is the future. Hacking is the future. These syndicates many a times hack the phones, or they steal the phones. They have the information. As we've previously said, these syndicates, we're talking about high-level criminals, on very, very rich people. They infiltrate and they pull all the information, and out of that information they make informed decision. But that is for any criminal. The criminal of today take photos of everything, video everything, and record anything. So the cell phone is very dangerous. It is created for good, but it's turned into evil. You have to be very careful. Number two, positive paranoia means, like Martin has said, having a real relationship with all people, watching out for their safety and security. If your neighbor practices that, then he is watching out for your safety and security. Positive paranoia is interfering, pushing your nose into anything and assisting where you can. addressing the issues, say what you mean what you say, being straightforward and exposing crime, constantly warning the public, working and standing together, looking past differences, looking past color, looking past religion, looking past everything, and only have one common goal. Whether you're the poorest guy on the street or the president, you have one common goal. All people are equal. All people are in danger. All of them. Thirdly, treat South Africa as a landmine field. Tread carefully everywhere. Do not get involved in anything unless you are 100% sure. Do proper planning. Do a proper evaluation of everything, even your holiday. Do a proper risk analysis, even your holiday, and do a proper identification. You need to pull yourself to a level where you are in a car, not constantly on your phone at every robot, not constantly thinking on anything and everything else. You need to plan every move, even driving to school, coming from your work to your house. Whatever you do, you have to move into positive paranoia as if you are the next victim, or as if you can drive into a cash in transit heist, or as if your car could be hijacked, or as if you could be hit by a stray bullet. You need to have positive paranoia. This is what South Africa has come to. And then lastly, Martin has said that we need to also assist the police. We need to assist the authorities. We need to pray for our government. We need to pray for each other. And we need to ask God to assist us so that we can see each other's worth. And we need to, with a correct attitude, try and make each of us and everybody better people. So what does it take of any community to have a good relationship with their police? What does it take to assist and just have proper relationships with your neighbors and the people in your community, and have a powwow together with your security companies and the police and see eye to eye about things? And in such a way, then you can do a proper identification and to see if there's any form of corruption, and then work as a group and people together. You know, Martin said it very clearly. If the population of South Africa just go out of their way to see the common goal as of crime in South Africa to be eradicated, and to be a positive paranoid person and to address crime and expose crime constantly, that already can make, in my opinion, 70% of the difference of the serious violent crimes and even economic crimes in South Africa. But the people don't. They hear no evil, they see no evil, and it's because of intimidation and corruption.
Well, thank you for that, Martin. We've got about 30 seconds. Final thoughts?
Yes, indeed. The crime of kidnapping is a very complex crime. It is related to other crimes like human trafficking, gender-based violence, sexual violence, marriage gone wrong, and so on and so forth. And the only way we can deal with this is to take care of each other. It is a Christmas period. This crime will only increase. So we need to be extra careful during this specific period, that the 2,000 we have had now, we could have the same for the 1 month that is remaining for the rest of the year. I thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that, Martin. And also to you, Mike. I believe we have unpacked quite a bit in the last hour, and we do appreciate you taking time out, talking to us here on Salam Media on Wednesday nights with myself, Inayet Wadee. We wish you well. Please take care.
Thank you.
Yes, that was the first hour of the show this evening, talking about kidnappings in South Africa. And there was just so much information, a lot that we had unpacked, and we're going to go for a break. We come back, and we've got a lot more to talk about this evening, and we're talking about Palestine. We're talking about an article that has been written by the MRN, concern about recruiting South Africans to fight in the Israeli Defense Force. And we've got Professor Nidal Sakar, who will be joining us out of the United States of America. We've got attorney Yusha Tayyib, who will be joining us. And also we've got with us, we're going to have Simon Cohen joining us right out of the United States of America. So stay with us. Don't go away.